Hi, I'm Angelica McGee with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and I'm interviewing with
Alexandra Leon.
And we are interviewing
Chip Carter.
First question: how did you first hear about the Florida Florida Folk Festival?
Well, back in the 70s, late 80s, I guess, mid late 80s, I was involved with a band that played here for the weekend, for Memorial Day weekend. And I came up with the band back in the 70s, I think 2 years or so back then. And so I knew about it. And then that broke up and I didn't come back at all until, I think, 1999, when I was involved with the Florida Bicycle Association. And they had a booth here, and they needed volunteers to man their booth at the Florida Bicycle Association. A little kiosk out here somewhere for the Florida Bicycle Association. They needed volunteers. So this was like in February or so, March or something, in '99. And so I said, well, I'll volunteer. So they said, well, if you volunteer for us, you have to volunteer to get into the park. You have to volunteer with the Florida Folk Festival. Well, the Folk Festival is going to be Memorial Day weekend, and it's only a couple of months away at the point, but they told me how to communicate with the Florida Folk Festival folks, and so I filled out an application. And anyway, I got volunteered, and I think my very first job volunteering with the Florida Folk Festival was cleaning bathrooms in the campground. It was the first year of the campground. The campground hadn't even been open to the public yet, but they had real nice bathrooms and so on like that. And then I volunteered on a shift with the Bicycle Association and talked to people about bicycles and things like that in the state of Florida, and bicycle laws and in the campground. And the advantage of the volunteers is you could stay in the campground with the performers. So I'm not a musician by any means, and I could end up camping out in the campground with the performers, and they would jam in the campground together, just casual stuff, and it was just kept on going from there. So they'd jam late at night, and so you could go to sleep in your tent and listen to music. So that's how I got started. Been coming ever since, except for a few years I didn't come, but COVID year I didn't come, and then one year I wasn't able to come, but I've been volunteering ever since '99, except for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Could you tell us about the community of volunteers that you found here at the festival?
Well, all the volunteers, most of the volunteers are musicians, or they're tied to the music, and they just want to, they've got their music shift, and then they do a volunteer job somewhere else. And most all of them have either been musicians or performers or something like that, storytellers, and then they get to do volunteers. Shortly after that first year when I was volunteering, I moved into volunteering at the campground entrance, and then I said, well, if you're campground and cleaning bathrooms, you're not in the park. I mean, you're not hearing the music. So I wanted to get something in the campground. So I looked around for jobs, and they had a list of jobs in the application, what you could do. And then I said, well, stage aid. So I could do stage aid work, and the people with the stage aid, they knew the performers and all that, and the stage aid was kind of helping arrange things and making sure the sound guys were right and knew the stuff. And so then it was a stage manager. At certain stages, they had a stage manager and a stage aide, plus an MC. Well, I saw these MC guys, and at one point, Carolyn Pardue was running the MCs and the stage people, and she said, I got an opening for an MC. Would you be willing to do it? Well, I just don't get in front of people. But I said, yeah, okay. Well, she put me in front of a small stage, and I had a good time with it. So I said, well, being an MC is pretty good. You get to talk to the performers each before and after each performance. But the volunteers are just a great group of people, and they come from all over the state of Florida, and some from Georgia that I've met, and they just really enjoy the atmosphere of the Florida Folk Festival. And so even though we're not musicians and have no idea how to play music or could hear music, we enjoy the music and the people here and the performers here. And it's kind of a neat deal. Everything's pretty much volunteer here, except for, they get even the park rangers that come here for the weekend. Most of those guys are volunteers for the weekend even. So they're not getting paid extra for being a park ranger or per diems or anything like that. And so being a volunteer is it's kind of a neat atmosphere. So,
How would you describe the atmosphere?
well, it's just everybody very helpful and very safe feeling atmosphere. So it's a thing where, well, like today, somebody I was emceeing at the Will McLean stage, and went there this morning first thing, before the program started, and I was straightening out the chairs and picking up trash and so on like that, and I found a towel that was folded up on a seat. Somebody was sitting on a towel over yesterday, I guess it had to be yesterday, on a seat. So I unfolded the towel and set it out so somebody could see it if they came back by and said, "Where's my towel?" And well, here it is. Well, I don't know whether it was still there this afternoon, but somebody there in the performance, one of the people watching the performance was sitting in the front row, and he got up and left, and he had a towel he had a short towel, or it wasn't a handkerchief, but it was a towel on his lap that he was using to dry his hands, and he got up and it just fell on the ground, and he walked on off. So I got up and set it up on the table, and sure enough, about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, he comes back and there's a towel ready for him. So things like that are just really, it's a safe, and people respect each other's property. But the campground is interesting with the performers and the volunteers. I mean, nobody can lock their tent, from a theft type thing, if there was such a thing, and there isn't. But the tents are so close together, almost sometimes you can even share tent pegs. They're so close in the campground. So it's just, they closed the campground, the Florida State Parks campground, to outside people like a week or so before, so they can clean it out and get it all ready. And then it's just open, just put your tent up anywhere you can. So it's not like you got to be in a space or something like that. So it's just, people look out for each other. The atmosphere is very, very safe feeling and relaxing, and people look out for each other. And you get to know faces. This is the only time you see them. I mean, once a year you see these people here, and it's like old time week meeting people, like just meeting you guys. I mean, maybe you'll be here next year, and I'll say, "Hey, how you doing? And how's the week been? And how's so it's just a neat thing to do."
Do you have any favorite traditions that you have when you come to the festival?
Well, as far as I'm just a volunteer, so as far as the traditions go, we tent, and other people come in with a motorhome or a camper or a trailer or something like that, and we tent. We got an air mattress. And last year it rained pretty hard, a couple of days, and we had water in the tent. But you could figure out that it'll dry out and you'll survive. I mean, it's not like it's not like something you can't handle. So this is the only time I camp is up here. So it's tenting and coming up for a tradition. One of the things we like to do, we like to come early, and so we can get a camp spot. And then my brother and his wife started volunteering, and they come up, so they want to camp together. So. And then we have guests. Each volunteer can bring a guest, or each participant can bring a guest, one-on-one type thing. So if you're a volunteer, you get one guest. If you're a participant, in a band or something, you get one guest per participant. So the tradition is try to get somebody else that's interested in this music. And so we invited a guest this last year, and they came up and they ended up volunteering. So they volunteered even though they were guests last year when they had a space available on the stage for stage manager or MC. And so we tried to get them to volunteer, sign up for volunteer this year. But they said, well, we're not real sure because Ray had a little medical issue, wasn't sure he could do it. So he just said, okay, we'll be your guest again. But he's now doing emceeing again, volunteering. So the tradition-wise, you ask about tradition stuff, is get people here that enjoy it and can spread the word and bring more people in. Like this one fellow at the registration Wednesday morning, this fellow named John McClure, and I didn't know him except from here, and he came up and sang a little song. He says, hey, listen, I wrote this little song about the Florida Folk Festival, and it was a little ditty, and it was just a neat little song. But it was all about the weekend of Florida Folk Festival and how you come and how you sign up and how you perform and campground and late night jam sessions. And I mean, it just, and really it had a nice tune to it, and he could sing it, you know, with no music or anything. He was just singing it in my ear. And I said, John, you need to get that on the radio, because if you play that, and he had 4 or 5 stanzas for this song, and get that on the radio, and at the end of the song, you can say, for tickets, call this number or go to this website or something like that. But it was really a really promotional song for the Florida Folk Festival. And that kind of stuff is what I'm trying to, you know, get more people to come out for the Florida Folk Festival.
Yeah, that's really cool. So going from that, if you had to create like a motto or like a family motto or something that kind of like encapsulates the vision of the festival, what would it be?
Oh man, I'm not any good at that. But a Florida Folk Festival would be it could be the Florida Family Folk Festival, or you know, it could bring in families. And last year was the first time I saw it as an MC. I got to introduce some young people that were performing, and this one girl she was a senior in high school, or she just graduated from high school, and she was going to college, and she was singing, had a guitar just by herself, and so I was just impressed with how nice she sounded and how good she sounded. And she had songs she wrote all by her, you know, her songs were written, and they were Florida type songs or type of living in Florida songs. And then this other couple of boys, and one this year, they were here last year, and they had a different name last year, but this year is Holt and Cabe, and one's going to be a senior in high school, and the other's going to be a junior. And they're writing, they were saying, this is a song I wrote when I was 10 years old. And it's a Florida song. One of them was about catfish noodling. And you know, it was just, and they all have Florida songs about palmetto bushes or mosquitoes or something. They're Florida songs. They're not Florida songs but they're new Florida songs, not like Gamble Rogers, Will McLean write songs about Florida living and stuff like that way back when. But these are Florida songs which are current to living in Florida. And so it's really nice to see these guys coming in. Young folks are starting to perform here, and so in their families. And so if you could come up with a motto or something, somehow you'd have to put family in it, because it's not just for old folks or young folks or something. It's for families to show up here. So I don't know. You can't. You know, Florida Folk Festival is an alliteration with 3 F's, and Florida Family Folk Festival or Florida Folk Festival, 4 families, there'd be 5 F's, you know. So I don't know how you do it, but that'd be interesting to do, to come up with something like that. But that's the way I see the Folk Festival.
What do you look forward to seeing the most every year? What or who?
What would work? What would I look for?
What do you look forward to seeing the most?
Well, the one thing I look forward to is good weather like we have this weekend. I mean, the weather this weekend has been the best weather of any of the folk festivals I've been to. I mean, and I've been here however many years, but I guess back in the 80s, I don't remember any rain or anything, but last year they had a lot of rain, and that's when our tents got wet. One year it was so hot and humid and no breeze at all. You just sleep, you know, on top of the sleeping bag in a tent and just sweat because it was so hot, and, you know, no air conditioning, of course, in a tent. But this year, it's just the perfect weather. And so that's one of the nice things. You plan for the worst, almost the worst, not really the worst weather. One year, they canceled, the word was they canceled the Florida Folk Festival on Memorial Day weekend because there were local fires. And there were a lot of fires in the area, and it was so smoky that they canceled. And the year before, they had fires in the area, and it was smoky. You could sit in the auditorium, the main stage there, and it was just smoky down. It wasn't so smoky you couldn't see the stage, but you could definitely see the smoke. And the following year, there were fires so close together, they canceled it. But then along later in June or July, they said, well, instead of canceling, we'll just postpone it, and we'll have it like, I think it was Veterans Day weekend in November. So they just everybody, they went back out to everybody that was performing and said, can you come back in November and perform? And so sure enough, we came up in November that weekend. It was a 3-day weekend, another 3-day weekend. And they did it Thursday. They started the folk festival on that Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And then the holiday weekend, Monday was holiday weekend. Pretty sure it's Veterans Day, but anyway, they didn't have the folk festival. It was the same schedule as they had here. But that weekend, it was really cold. And so they were saying, this weekend is the coldest it's ever been, except for the time they had it in November. So the weather is one thing I prepare for, but look forward to good weather. And getting to see folks that you want to see again, and new folks. These are some of the folks I saw today and yesterday, folks that say they've been here for 30 years. Well, I've never seen them. They're just really great, and they're Florida folks. So it's kind of interesting to see that from something I look forward to, is seeing new folks. And so,
What songs would be in the Florida Folk Family Songbook?
oh my goodness, I have no idea. I mean, I can't remember a joke to tell you. I mean, I have no idea what kind of song. Some of the songs are, if they talk about Florida or living in Florida, but these kids, Holt and Cabe, every song they write, just about every song they write is about something in Florida. So, but they're different, and they're different from the old timey, what you would think is a Florida folk song. But I couldn't come up with a name of a song. It'd be hard to say.
Do you have a memorable time at a campground?
Well, the times we used to go around and I had one time I had a guest that played music, but he wasn't a performer in the campground. And we went around, and he brought his guitar, and so we went around to different campsites where they were jamming together, just groups get together and sit there and listen to these guys jamming and all that. But now we don't do that. We just sit there in our campground, and we can hear a jam session over here. We can hear a jam session over there. We can hear a jam session here. And last night there was one just in the campground right next to us, and they went till about 2 a.m. playing and having a good time. I put earplugs in, went to bed, and it was good music to go to sleep to. You wake up and still hear it, and go back to sleep again. So, at this point, it's just really neat for, something to look forward to is getting into the jam session in the campground. So.
Can you tell me about someone you met at the festival who's kind of had a big impact on you?
Well, everybody is different here. The people I meet here, they're all kind of different people, and they have different impressions. One fellow that used to show up here a long time ago, a guy named Robert Henderson, and that was his real name, but he went by Robin because he played the bagpipes. And so it was one of those Scottish things, and there's not a Robert in Scotland, there's Robins. And so he went by Robin Henderson, and he played bagpipes, and he would played whatever the bagpipe song is to introduce the evening show on the amphitheater and so on like that. And he's not coming anymore. He used to work at the Gainesville Fire Department, and fairly high up in the Gainesville Fire Department. So I remember him, and I've talked to him after that. I lived in Gainesville at the time, and I communicated with him several times. And the high school band I grew up with or went to in high school had a Scottish unit, and there were bagpipes and drum sets. And so Robin, I asked him to go down and have a training session with the bagpipers in this high school. I don't know whether they ever did or not, but he was a memorable guy. But every year, you only see these people once a year, so it's not like you want to really see them again. But excuse me. One of the people that really impresses me a lot is Carolyn Pardue, and she's a girl in charge of the MCs and stage management and all that. She lives in Tallahassee with her husband Howard, and she sets up the schedule for MCing and stage aides and stage managers, and puts together a book for the stage managers and the MCs about each performance. So each page has information about each performance and the schedule on it. Just her organization is impressive. So, and she comes over here quite often, drives over from Tallahassee to White Springs just to help with the local CSO, the local citizen support organization for the park. And so she's impressive, but other than that, everybody's. The guy I met yesterday introducing one of the groups, I just happened to mention to him, and then he was on stage, and Dan Payton of the Payton brothers came by and he said, "Man, that guy Dave, he's playing bass. He is such a good guitar player and such a great mandolin player. He can really play the guitar and really play mandolin. But there he is playing the bass." And so I mentioned that to Dave once I saw him separate. I said, "Dave, Dan Payton thinks you wasting your talent, playing the bass instead of, you're so good on the guitar and mandolin." He says, "Well, I really like playing the bass because it's kind of low key and stuff like that." You get to meet people and help them out that way and give them some positive feedback, So every performer, when I'm doing the MCs or something, and after their performance and the next group's on, I go up and tell them how great they were and how good their sound was and give them some really positive boosts. And it's just part of the thing is to give these people some positive feedback so they feel desired and feel wanted and feel like they've made a difference. So they've made a difference. So, and they have.
So we talked a lot about like the lessons and things. So I guess I should ask, what does like a typical day look like for you at the festival, volunteering and things?
Well, we get up. I like working in the morning, so I have the afternoons to see performers and the evenings to see the main stage performance and stuff like that. And this year I was lucky enough, so each day I'm volunteering, I'm opening up a stage. Yesterday I opened up Gamble Rogers, and today and tomorrow I open up the Will McLean stage just up here. So those things, and those are 3 or 4 hours or so at a time. You're sitting there, and in between performances, I can do other things. I can go to the bathroom or go get a drink of water or something like that. But when the next group comes in, if they come in early, I can visit with that group and get to know them a little bit, find out where they're from and how they met and how they got together and so on like that. And then after their performance, I go give them some positive boosts and then wait for the next group to come in. That's during my MC shift. But then after that, then it's going around and checking out the food vendors and the craft vendors and just visiting with folks and going back and forth to the campground and visiting with folks in the campground area. And you just kind of make friends with all kinds of folks that you never see any time else except now. I mean, this weekend, and it's like, "Oh man, great," and you get a big hug and stuff like that. So it's like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a year." So, but it's just kind of a neat. It's like a big family grouping here, and some people come and go. Some people aren't back here again, and some people, excuse me, it's just they'll miss a year for some reason, one way or another. And so it's just enjoying the atmosphere and enjoying the people and meeting people and seeing them again and making connections all over again. So,
Do you have a go-to like festival food that you like?
well, the best festival food, and I've been kind of promoting it on the stage here. The best one I like is that Greek flame food, that booth there. And I remember coming up here originally, and this older fella, he was Greek, and it seems to me he just went by George, and it was George something something something, Greek name, a lot of alphabet, a lot of letters and K's and T's and stuff. But anyway, he said, and he had his first name was a Greek name, but he says, "No, people call me George, so just call me George." So, older fella that ran the booth there, And so, I'd get to see him and talk to him about it. And the food was just, I'd never had Greek food. I just never had it. So well, I'll give you a little sample. So he gave me a little sample, just a little bit. Well, this is tasty. So I got the main meal, and so I've been coming back for that. I mean, I just look forward to that every year. And this year, his daughter-in-law Frances is here, and her last name's Greek. She married his husband, or his son, I guess. And I asked her about her dad, and she says, well, it's my father-in-law. And he's 83 now, and he's going strong and all this. So, but I like the Greek flame food booth. And then also the root beer float truck. The root beer guy is Grant, and I forgot what his wife's name is, but there is something really great with those guys. But those are the two I kind of remember and look forward to each year. Other than that, I'm not, I don't really look forward to any of them, really. I mean, I look forward to all of them, but I mean, we had a little lunch today. We're not going to have a dinner tonight, so I'm looking forward to going to the Greek flame food and get the real meal, whatever the big meal from those guys. So that's the one I like the best. So.
What valuable lessons have you learned from other festival family members?
Well, the thing is, it's not what so much you learn, but it gets reinforced is the atmosphere. It's safe, and people look out for each other and pick up after each other, and it's just one of those things where you get the reinforcement of it's a good place to be. It's a nice family location, and one little girl, she was walking. She was 8 or 9 years old or something like that. Little girl was walking in the campground, and she had two fiddles, a fiddle in each hand, is walking out towards the gate. And I was riding a bicycle, and I stopped, and Lloyd Baldwin had told me about this girl that had won a fiddle contest down in Dade City or somewhere where there's a fiddle contest earlier this year. And this little girl was 8 or 9 years old or something like that, and she got put in the senior group, the most advanced group of fiddle players, and won over everybody else. And here she is, like that. So anyway, I saw this little girl, and she was carrying fiddles, and I stopped and asked her about it, and she didn't back down at all. I mean, it wasn't like I was somebody strange guy, but she looked up and smiled. She says, "No, that's my friend Elizabeth," and just carried on a conversation like I was just next door neighbor. I was like somebody she knew, and it's that. And she didn't know me from Adam, and I didn't know this little girl either, except I'd seen her walking, and I stopped and talked to her. So that atmosphere, I hope in other situations she has a little bit more defensive mechanism going on, but she didn't at all when I talked to her. And of course, it was in this atmosphere. So that part of the thing is just the family. Everybody's family here. Everybody's a close neighbor. So it's not, nobody's a stranger. So that's what I like about this.
What would you say is the most rewarding part about being part of the festival?
Oh, it's all every day is I mean, just being here with you guys is kind of rewarding. I mean, from a point of view that you guys think this is important enough to put into some sort of record or something that, and I'm just a volunteer, how does this, but this is important. So just being here is important. It's just a rewarding part of being here and being a part of it. And we actually came down from Oregon. We flew down from Oregon on Saturday just for this, because we were going to be in Oregon for the rest of the summer, but we had volunteered for the Florida Folk Festival. So we came down here from Oregon, where we spend the summer, and just for the Florida Folk Festival, just for the atmosphere, just for being here. My wife volunteers also, so we just, it's part of the deal, part of being able to do it. And we're happy to be able to do it. That's the other thing, is some people are not able to do this stuff, and we're fortunate enough to be able to do it. So.
Is there any wisdom or information that you'd pass down to younger performers or participants just to keep the legacy of the festival alive?
Good question. And I try to do exactly that. I try to get these guys, the younger performers that I MC that I've introduced and seen. I try to make sure that you're coming back next year. They really want you to come back next year, and you're a really great performer, and especially the ones that, I haven't seen any younger performers that aren't desirable for next year. I mean, some of these younger performers should be on the main stage. I mean, because that's the future of the Florida Folk Festival is the younger performers. They're getting so many. I mean, Will McLean's dead, and Gamble Rogers dead, and these cousin Thelma, who way back when started the thing, she's gone, and it's just one of those things where we got to get the younger folks up on the stage and have them part of being the future of the Florida Folk Festival. And I encourage every one of them, and even the ones that are, quote, middle-aged, I give them a boost too, because they can go another 10, 15, 20 years or so also. And these kids, like some of these kids can go for 50 years more. So, they got a long ways ahead of them. So if they stick around, and the younger, like this young lady, Olivia Hunter was her name, here she is, a good-looking young lady. She's freshman in college, or maybe a sophomore by now, I don't know. And she's got a great voice, great singing. And I asked her what she wants to do in life, and she says, well, I want to be an editor, edit magazine, edit books. So I can do that online. They send me a book on the computer, and I can do that. I can do that from anywhere. And I can still be getting income from that, but then I can be singing somewhere else too. I can be traveling and singing. But young ladies, once they get up in age a little bit, they get the genes going, and they say, I need to have my babies. And once you have a baby, life changes. I mean, life is going to change 100% for you as soon as you, and or the guys get married, and then the wife doesn't want to do something. I just heard about a story about a couple right now. They're not here, but I heard a story about a couple. There's neighbors of folks I was talking with, and the guy wanted to live in Florida. He wanted to stay in Florida, but she wanted to move to North Carolina, and he wasn't going to. He didn't want to leave town where he was raised, and she had moved from North Carolina to down there, and she didn't have her family there, so she wasn't going to. They weren't going to snowbird. They weren't going to live here and there at the same time. He wasn't moving, and she was moving, so that's not good. But then I found another guy, another couple, that fellow I knew way back when, and I said, how's your wife? And she says, well, I think she's okay. She's in North Carolina. Well, she doesn't spend summers in Florida anymore, but he lives in Gainesville, and they got 20 acres or so in Gainesville, and he can't leave the farm in Gainesville. So he's in Florida for the summer, and his wife is in North Carolina. So, but they're still married, and they're still happily married, and still get together, and so on. But as far as the young folks, I just really promote the young folks staying here, coming back, and don't change your lifestyle. So, I asked the mom of these two boys, the young boys, so what are they going to do? And they said, well, I don't know, marine biology or something, something they're going to study, because they're both still in high school, but they're both taking college courses. And marine biology, they can stay in Florida, and they're two brothers, and they're about 3 years apart, really. And could they stay friends and stay close enough together to continue making songs and singing together? Well, who knows? So...
What do you wish everyone knew about the festival?
Well, I wish they knew about it. It doesn't get promoted enough, I don't think. What I was saying about this fellow, John McClure, his little song, if he could get that song on a recording and put it on YouTube or something like that, and then have the Florida Folk Festival folks or Department of State folks to pick it up and use that as a lead-in or a promotion song for the Florida Folk Festival, I think that would bring more people in. But I'm in Central Florida, and it's a long ways to come up here from Central Florida for this, but folks come from Miami to sing, to perform, to participate, and Fort Myers. They come from all over the state. Pensacola, they drive all the way over here for to perform. Well, why don't people know to come up here for the, for the performance? Well, multiple reasons, I think. One of them is, as a volunteer, we get to camp in the campground. So we know where we're going to stay as a volunteer, but not everybody's a volunteer. And volunteers get in for free. So the paying customer has to stay somewhere. And there's only limited campgrounds and places to stay in White Springs, and not that many places even in Lake City to stay. And Lake City is 15 miles away and so on. So I don't know how you get more people to show up for a 3-day festival when overnight accommodations might be limited. And overnight accommodations now have gotten so expensive. So I don't know how you get more people to show up. But the deal is, in Central Florida, local radios or local TV, they have no, and the local newspaper has no knowledge of the Florida Folk Festival. Whether the Florida Folk Festival sends out a news release and there aren't newspapers anymore, it's all online type thing. And if you got a newspaper, it's so expensive to actually get a paper delivered to your house. So how do you promote it? And you get on social media and how do you get people to even look at it? So I don't know how you do it, but more people need to know about it. And I've talked to people down in Lake Wales, where I'm from, and they don't know anything about it. They'd like to come, but, well, where do I stay if I'm just coming up for the day or for the weekend or something? And one group that was singing today, 2 guys, and they're from Tallahassee, and they commute. They don't spend the night here. They got a song set each day, and I introduced them this morning, about noontime or so, and they said, okay, well, we're going back to Tallahassee, and we got to be back for a 12:30 show tomorrow. So they're driving back and forth from Tallahassee, but they're performers, so they're on stage and such. But how do you get the public to show up? They got to know about it, and how do the performers know about it? How do they promote to the performers to get them to show up? And how do they get these 2 boys from Fort Myers, which is way south of Tampa on the Gulf Coast? How do they get those guys to show up here? I didn't ask them how they ended up here, but and this one fellow, Thomas Hendon, he's from Pensacola also. No, he's from Bluntstown, which is just the other side of Tallahassee, and this is the first time he's here, and he's like maybe 40 years old. Didn't ask him exactly how old, but he didn't know Wayne Martin, and Wayne Martin is from Bluntstown, had the Callahan restaurant in Bluntstown. And I told him, do you know Wayne Martin? He says, oh, who's that? And I said, well, he owned a restaurant that got destroyed by Hurricane Michael. Oh, Callahan's. Yeah, we used to eat there all the time. And Wayne Martin is one of the headliner guys here at the Florida Folk Festival. How did he end up knowing to come here? And he said, this is the very first festival I've played at. But he's been performing, single performer. He said, I've been performing for 20 years or so, singing my songs at different places. But I don't know how, it'd be, social media is a lot cheaper to send out information, but people have to be able to look at it and know to come. And then they have to know with the social media, tell them you're going to Florida Folk Festival, get a discount at the hotels in Lake City or Live Oak, or, I don't know.
What do you want your festival legacy to be?
My festival
Legacy? Legacy?
Legacy. Oh, gee whiz. No, just volunteer. My legacy is I'm just showing up to help. I can do whatever. When I show up, the thing is, we get kind of bored listening around. Is there anybody we want to see? No, so we'll go up to someplace to the back porch or something like that. Do you need any help? And so, well, we need somebody to deliver ice to the vendors, to the food places. So when they come over for ice, there's a big refrigerated ice van parked way down here on back road somewhere. So you go down there and they give you the key to open it up and get a couple of bags of ice and take them up to the food van. So we just stay in the volunteer stage and do whatever's needed. So that's, and I think all volunteers are pretty much that way. So they want to help out the festival and make sure it looks good. And when you walk down the street and see a piece of trash, you pick it up and clean up, do the right thing for the, make it more desirable for folks. So I don't know what the admission fee is here. So I don't, whether it's $5 or $50, I don't know, but because I've never had to pay it. So I don't know.
Are there any last thoughts or questions, things you wish I asked but didn't?
Oh, gee, that's a good question. No, I mean, I'm just, when Kim Rivers asked me to come in and get interviewed, I said, do what? I said, I'm just, I have no idea what you guys want to know. And so as far as I'm, for the legacy part of it, or for the, for somebody, if ever somebody wanted to look at this, it said, try to volunteer, and Elaine's last year running this thing is going to be next year. So this is her last year. Next year is going to be the last year she runs it, and she is over everything. So she kind of manages all of it, from registration to the performers to the vendors she is the person in charge of all of it. And I don't know that she reports to the park manager, Manny, or to somebody higher up, but or whether she even has a higher up except to the governor or something, I don't know. But after Elaine leaves, I have no idea how, nobody's going to, I don't know who's going to take it over, how they're going to know to take it over. I don't know whether Elaine has an understudy for this year, a trainee, and somebody sitting right beside her watching what she's doing all the time. Because when I've seen Elaine, she's pretty much by herself and making decisions that have to be decided. And Elaine's the one that, she is the person in charge. So future of the Florida Folk Festival depends on, next year is going to be her last year doing it, and whether she takes I don't have to work so hard because I don't have to be here next year, or whether she's going to make next year the best year ever, which I think is her mentality. She'll make next year the best year ever. But then after that, it could be even better with a new person. I don't know, but I don't know who that person is. So I don't know. It's a question. So this is what, 71 years? Is that what the little tag says? I think the 71st year.
Yeah, 71.
Yeah, so 72 could be the last one, or it could be just the beginning of the great future. And all the performers I talk with, they want to, the festival as it's run now is something they want to enjoy. They want to, because they know they get an audience, and they get an appreciative audience. And so, I don't know. But thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.